Welcome to the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and support me. Peter Parker's phone buzzed loudly on the desk, the notification lighting up the screen. He glanced over with disinterest, still tinkering with the miniature drone in his hand. His lab was scattered with half-finished gadgets, web fluid cartridges, and hastily written notes from his last late-night session. Breaking news: Bruce Banner captured high-tech prison to hold the whole. Peter's heart skipped a beat, his fingers stopped moving, and the drone he'd been working on clattered to the floor. He picked up the phone, eyes scanning the headline again and again, not wanting to believe it. Bruce Banner captured the Hulk in prison. The newsfeed was awash with footage of military transports moving through barren, dust-filled roads, their cargo protected by drones, soldiers, and towering men. In the center of it all, encased in a massive, heavily reinforced cage, was Bruce Banner. No Hulk, just Bruce, looking more vulnerable than Peter had ever seen him. The live feed cut to the exterior of a sprawling high-tech facility. This wasn't just any prison. This was built for a very specific purpose. Peter's mind raced. Bruce must have let them take him without a fight, probably out of fear of causing destruction. But that meant they knew how to contain him. The prison, according to the report, was equipped with cutting-edge technology designed to suppress gamma energy. They'd found a way to keep the Hulk at bay, and they intended to keep Bruce locked up permanently. He closed his eyes, exhaling slowly. He could see Bruce's face in his mind, tired, resigned, but still trying to do the right thing. Peter couldn't let this stand. Not when his friend, one of the most brilliant minds he'd ever known, was being treated like a monster. He didn't have much time. He swung into action, grabbing his backpack and hastily shoving some gear inside, a portable web shooter modification kit, his spider tracers, and the wrist-mounted Hollis interface Tony had given him years ago. He'd need every piece of tech he could get his hands on to break into the prison and pull off what he was about to attempt. This wasn't going to be a simple smash-and-grab job. Brute strength wasn't going to work. He'd all have to rely on his brain, his agility, and everything Tony Stark had taught him about outsmarting highly advanced systems. Time to be the friendly neighborhood genius, Peter muttered to himself as he suited up. The red and blue suit clung to him like a second skin, familiar and comforting, though the weight of responsibility now felt heavier than usual. He checked the web shooters one last time, adjusted the lenses in his mask, and then leaped from his apartment window, swinging through the night sky, heading toward the prison complex on the outskirts of the city. The prison loomed on the horizon, a metallic fortress glinting under the harsh floodlights that surrounded it. The place was a maze of walls, sensors, and security drones, all interconnected and watching for any sign of intrusion. Peter perched on a nearby rooftop, surveying the facility with narrowed eyes. He activated the wrist-mounted Hollow interface, pulling up a 3D schematic he'd pieced together from hacking into the building as blueprint. "This place is a fortress," he muttered, watching as red warning symbols blinked over nearly every inch of the map. Energy shields, thermal sensors, motion detectors. It was a veritable playground for a tech-savvy Spider-Man. And then there were the gamma nullifiers, highly specialized devices that were currently keeping Bruce Banner's gamma radiation suppressed, preventing him from transforming into the Hulk. Peter flexed his fingers, taking a deep breath. He had to move carefully. Any alarm, any mistake, and the prison's security would tighten like a noose, making escape impossible. He shot a web line, gliding silently over the outer walls, sticking to the shadows. The place was crawling with patrols, AI-driven sentinels, soldiers equipped with high-powered rifles and automated defense turrets. He hung upside down from a high tower, observing their patrol routes, waiting for the perfect moment to move. When a gap finally opened in the sentinels' route, he swung down, landing silently in the courtyard. Time to get to work. His first objective was to disable the gamma nullifiers. Without them, Bruce could transform and help in the escape. But getting to those devices meant breaching several layers of defenses, each one more sophisticated than the last. Peter crept through the shadows, sticking to walls and ceilings to avoid detection. His enhanced senses were on high alert, every slight movement and sound amplified in his ear. He reached the first security station, a sleek console embedded into the wall. 2 guards stood nearby, their attention focused on their patrol route. "All right, boys, just look the other way," Peter whispered, shooting a small web tracer onto the back of the nearest guard's helmet. He tapped his wrist console, sending a small electrical pulse through the tracer. The guard stiffened, his movement slowing as the pulse interfered with his neural signal. The second guard turned to check on him, but before he could react, Peter was on him, knocking him out with a swift blow to the head. "Sorry guys, I'll make it up to you later." With the guards neutralized, Peter turned his attention to the console. He quickly overrode the basic security protocols, his fingers moving across the holographic interface in a blur. The screen flashed red as he initiated a shutdown of the external sensor. It wasn't time enough to disable the entire system, but it would buy him time. The gamma nullifiers were housed in a central chamber deep within the facility. Peter made his way inside, dodging laser tripwires and automated drones. He paused outside the chamber's reinforced door, his heart pounding. He couldn't just waltz in. There would be more defenses inside, and he'd have to act fast. "Okay, Pete, you've got this." Using his web shooters, he fired 2 lines at the ceiling, pulling himself up and sticking to the wall just above the doorframe. He slipped into the chamber upside down, his eyes scanning for traps. The room was filled with strange machinery, all centered around a massive generator that hummed with suppressed energy. In the middle of the room stood the gamma nullifier's sleek, black devices pulsing with a faint green light. Peter could feel the energy emanating from them, a low thrum that made the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. This was what was keeping Bruce Banner human. Peter dropped down silently, moving toward the control console. The nullifiers were linked to the entire prison cyber grid. He couldn't just shut them down without causing a massive alert. He needed to overload them, make it look like an accident, a system malfunction. But one wrong move, and the entire place would go into lockdown. His fingers flew across the console, bypassing security protocols and rerouting power from the main generator. A countdown appeared on the screen as the system began to overload. Peter stepped back, watching as the nullifiers flickered, the green glow dimming slightly. Just as he thought he was in the clear, the door behind him hissed open. "Spider-Man." Peter whirled around, coming face to face with a towering AI sentinel. Its red eyes glowed menacingly as it stepped into the room, its robotic limbs whirring with precision. "You are trespassing in a restricted area," the AI declared in a cold, metallic voice. "Surrender, now or face termination." "Yeah, that's not happening," Peter muttered, his body tensing. He fired a web at the sentinel, aiming to blind its sensors, but the machine was faster than he expected. It dodged the web with ease, its arm transforming into a plasma cannon. Peter dodged just in time, the plasma bolt scorching the wall behind him. He leaped onto the ceiling, firing web lines to distract the sentinel, but it was relentless, tracking his every move. Peter somersaulted through the air as another plasma blast seared past his head, the heat from the bolt crackling in his ear. He landed on the far wall, sticking there for a split second before vaulting off again, narrowly avoiding another barrage of fire. This AI sentinel wasn't just fast, it was smart, smarter than any of the other machines he had tangled with before. Each move it made was calculated, adaptive. It wasn't just trying to predict Peter's movements, it was learning them. "Okay, this is getting old fast," Peter muttered as he shot a web line toward the sentinel's cannon arm, yanking it just as the robot fired again. The blast veered off course, striking the ceiling and causing a small explosion of debris to rain down. Peter darted through the smoke, using the distraction to get in close. With a quick leap, he landed on the sentinel's sandbag, clinging to its metallic frame like a bug on a windshield. The sentinel's head swiveled, trying to shake him off, but Peter held fast. "All right, let's see how you like a little rewiring," he said, pulling out a small device from his belt. It was a modified MP disruptor. Tony had given him a last resort, usually too risky to use in a place with so much tech, but he was out of options. The sentinel began thrashing violently, its mechanical limbs flailing as Peter worked quickly, attaching the disruptor to its central power unit. Sparks flew as the device interfaced with the sentinel systems, causing it to jerk and stutter. Come on, Peter muttered, watching the countdown on the disruptor screen. 3 seconds to 1. The Emperor discharged with a blinding flash, and the sentinel went limp beneath him, its red eyes flickering out as it collapsed to the floor in a heap of metal. Peter rolled off its back, breathing heavily. The room was silent now, save for the low hum of the gamma nullifiers, still pulsing nearby. Phew, that was way too close. Peter didn't waste any more time. He hurried back to the console, his fingers moving rapidly as he completed the overload process. The lucifiers flickered one last time before shutting down completely, their green glow fading into darkness. Peter felt a wave of relief wash over him. Now Bruce would be able to transform if necessary. But he wasn't terse out of the woods. Yet the prison systems would eventually detect the power surge. And when they did, all hell would break loose. He had to get to Bruce now. He sprinted out of the chamber, navigating the corridors with ease as he headed for the central containment area. His enhanced reflexes kept him ahead of the patrolling drones and automated turrets, but the further he went, the tighter security became. The prison was responding to the power fluctuations. Peter could hear the klaxons blaring faintly in the distance, a sign that the security protocols were starting to escalate. As he approached the containment wing, he spotted 2 heavily armed guards standing outside Bruce's cell. They were equipped with energy weapons designed specifically to counter superhuman threats, likely adapted to deal with Hulk-level problems. Peter paused in the shadows, assessing the situation. He needed to take them out quietly. No big flashy fights, not yet. He crawled up along the ceiling using the dim lighting to his advantage. The guards were scanning the hallway, oblivious to the fact that danger was literally above their head. Peter lowered himself down, upside down, until he was just inches behind the nearest guard. With a flick of his wrist, he webbed the guard's weapon, yanking it away and knocking him unconscious with a swift punch to the jaw. The second guard turned startled, but before he could raise his weapon, Peter was on him, sweeping his legs out from under him and webbing him to the floor in a neat cocoon. "Sorry, guys, you'll thank me later." With the guards out of commission, Peter turned his attention to the cell door. It was a massive, reinforced structure designed to withstand gamma radiation surges and brute force. But Peter wasn't planning on using brute force. He tapped into the door control panel, using the codes he'd stolen earlier to override the locking mechanism. The door slid open with a loud hiss, revealing Bruce Banner sitting inside, his hands cuffed in glowing restraints that pulsed with energy. Peter Bruce's voice was hoarse, his eyes widening in surprise. "How did—" "No time for that, big guy," Peter said as he moved quickly to Bruce's side. He examined the restraints, his brow furrowing. They were connected to the prison's central power grid, designed to suppress Bruce's gamma energy directly. "We've got to get you out of here before they figure out what's going on." Bruce nodded, but his expression was grim. "Even if I could transform, Peter, I don't think I can control the Hulk in here. The suppression has been affecting me for days. I am weaker than usual." Peter paused, considering his options. He couldn't risk triggering Bruce transformation here in the cell, not when the prison systems were designed to handle a Hulk-level threat. They needed to escape without causing too much attention, at least until they were far enough away from the core defenses. "Okay, new plan," Peter said, removing a small device from his belt, a portable version of the gamma dampener that Tony had developed. He attached it to Bruce's restraints, watching as the cuffs deactivated with a faint click. "This will keep the gamma levels stable. For now, no Hulk, but you will have enough strength to move." Bruce rubbed his wrists, wincing slightly. That's enough." They moved quickly, making their way through the winding corridors of the prison. Bruce was still weak, but the relief of having his energy no longer suppressed allowed him to keep pace with Peter. They avoided most of the patrols, sticking to the shadows, and using Peter's tech to disable cameras and motion detectors. But as they neared the exit, their luck ran out. The prison's security had finally caught up with them. An alarm blared, echoing through the halls, and the entire facility went into lockdown. Heavy doors slammed shut around them, cutting off their escape route. Peter cursed under his breath, glancing at Bruce, who was breathing heavily. "We were not going to make it out of here without a fight," Bruce said, his voice low and tense. Peter's eyes darted around the room, his mind racing. They were trapped between 2 massive blast doors, with no way out and no reinforcement. But then he saw the central power hub for the section. If he could disable the power, it would temporarily shut down the lockdown protocols, giving them a chance to escape. "I've got an idea," Peter said, running toward the power hub. "Keep an eye on the door. This is going to get messy." He quickly accessed the hub, bypassing the security protocols with his hollow interface. His fingers flew over the screen, rerouting power away from the central systems and into a feedback loop. The blast doors shuddered as the power fluctuated, and for a brief moment, the lockdown disengaged. "Go now," Peter shouted as the doors slid open just enough for them to squeeze through. They ran down the corridor, the sounds of approaching security forces growing louder. Bruce's strength was returning slowly, but they were still outnumbered and outgunned. As they neared the exit, Peter knew they were going to have to make a stand. He turned to Bruce, handing him a spare web shooter. "I know it's not your usual style, but this might help." Bruce looked at the web shooter, a small smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "Never thought I'd be playing Spider-Man, but let's give it a shot." The two of them prepared for the onslaught, standing side by side as the doors to the exit burst open, revealing a squad of heavily armed guards and sentinels. The air was thick with tension, the sound of weapons charging filling the space. Peter's heart pounded in his chest, but he wasn't afraid. He glanced at Bruce, who nodded grimly, his hands already raised in preparation for the fight. "Ready? Let's do this." And with that, they charged into the fray.